Season 4 of Breaking Bad has got to be one of the most intense and anxiety-inducing seasons of television I've ever seen. Picking up right where Season 3 left off, Jesse is now responsible for the murder of Gale, leaving nobody able to cook for Gus Fring except for Walt and Jesse themselves. The entire first episode has the two of them held within the lab itself by Mike and Victor, awaiting the arrival of Gus to dish out whatever punishment he sees fit. Upon his arrival, you have the two major differences at play between Walt and Jesse. Walt is consistently talking, trying to explain within as full of reason and logic as possible as to why Gus should keep them alive, desperately pleading, whereas Jesse, dealing with the act of just murdering somebody in cold blood, stays silent, awaiting whatever fate is to become of him without regard of his own life. Gus is also silent here, letting his body language and actions send the intended message, slicing Victor's throat right in front of them and making them watch this man's final gasp for life within the hands of Gus Fring. Walt may have won the battle and saved his life for the time being, but he is still within the grasp of Gus. And what good graces they may have had has now been sliced away. Gus killing Victor can be interpreted a multitude of ways. Victor was at the crime scene and probably could be recognized or leave prints, and he also took it upon himself to try to cook the meth, which is not his job. But ultimately, it can still be seen as a display of dominance, and though Gus can't kill them yet, they will know their place, that they belong to him. And thus starts the chess match of which this entire season becomes Walt versus Gus, and who will ultimately gain control. Walt is at a severe disadvantage this season, and a large theme that runs through it is Walt's desperate struggle to gain some semblance of control over the threat of imminent death, over Jesse's partnership, over his own life and his own choices. There is nothing worse for his ego than the realization this season that he has next to no moves that he can make. He's at the mercy of Gus, at the mercy of how far into the criminal world he's become, the mercy of needing to launder his money in some type of way, and losing those that he could once trust. In fact, Season 4 may be the most isolated that we see Walt throughout the whole series, minus the last 2 episodes of Season 5. And that makes him the underdog, which is where the vast amount of creativity comes to the writing of this season, because by Season 4 we have spent nearly 40 episodes with Walter and watched him do some really bad things. But I think no more than Season 4 does the show really make you root for him. And considering what he does in Season 4 is worse than Seasons 1 through 3, that says a lot about how compelling you can make the protagonist in this series. We've seen how hard Walt has worked, the sacrifices he made, and the lies upon lies that he's told to get to this point. It's like, finally he's making a lot of money. Finally he has a way to secure his income. Finally he's back with his wife and kids. But we are really rooting for a man that's willing to poison a child in order to manipulate an emotionally destroyed young man into obeying him. A man that is willing to bomb a nursing home, a man that is willing to drive his brother-in-law into oncoming traffic to avoid suspicion. Yeah, we are.
Don't know who you're talking to, so let me clue you in. I am not in danger, Skylar. I am the danger. A guy opens his door and gets shot, and you think that of me? No. I am the one who knocks.
And honestly, it works great for the overall narrative. Season 4 is where we make Walt the ultimate underdog climbing his way to dominance, which will lead into Season 5 when we see how terrifying Walt at the top of his power can truly be. For Jesse Pinkman, he is caught at a major crossroads, and I think what they do with Jesse this season might be my favorite storyline for him. After having to kill Gale, Jesse is unable to deal with the silence. He has massive parties at his house to drown out his own intrusive thoughts and the horrific images of the shooting. All the while, Walt seems to have no sympathy for making Jesse do what he did. He is so concerned for his own well-being that he treats this traumatic event like it's nothing. Meanwhile, Gus makes a play to course-correct Jesse's priorities, slowly separating him from Walt. Pairing up Jesse with Mike, that was a fantastic idea. You could not get two characters that are more different, and I love getting character interactions that you wouldn't normally think of. Mike is so down to business, efficient, and experienced, and Jesse is so unsure of himself that the dynamic just works great. And I love this sort of bond that they get and how Mike sort of becomes this other adult figure in Jesse's life other than Walt, that he's, constantly thinking about which one that he should go with at any given time. In a roundabout way, they form a pretty tight bond, and Jesse even gets to meet Gus a few times after growing closer to the inner circle while Walt is being pushed more away. Not to mention, while all this is going on between the characters, the plot is pressing forward with the idea that the Mexican cartel is coming down hard on Gus, taking down his shipments of meth and forcing him into a deal with them. This leads to great character discoveries within Gus Fring and his history and connection with the cartel. We learn about his backstory, meeting with Don Eladio, basically the top dog of the cartel, and how Gus and his partner, the other half of the Pollos Hermanos, wanted to partner up with the cartel and sell meth. His partner being the one that knew how to cook it, and having him shot and killed right in front of Gus. One of the only times that we see Gus both enraged to the point that he's willing to attack, and also broken to the point where he's crying his eyes out at the sight of his deceased partner. And we understand why Gus is so adamant about his plan, why he needed to have it happen, why he had the lab built, and that his motivation has always been revenge, to gain the power and distribution, as well as to take out the cartel, take out Eladio, and all of the Salamancas, including the man who pulled the trigger on his partner, Hector, Mr. Bellringer himself. It all comes full circle as Gus makes his play to go to Mexico, kill them all, and come back to rub it in Hector's face, enjoying his victory and the fact that Hector is helpless to do anything against him. Now, as far as Hank's story this season, it's a rough one for him. He's still unable to walk after being shot, and he pretty much stays this way all season. At first, he's distracting himself by collecting these rocks, or minerals, I guess. Also, he is such an asshole to Marie in the beginning of the season. It honestly drives me crazy. Marie is so loving and supportive and by his side, and I don't think many women would be willing to put up with as much as she has, and honestly, she really cares for him, so that part really always irritated me. But soon after, Hank begins to help out with the death of Gale case and stumbles upon a clue that leads him to suspect Gus may be involved. But of course, if not for Walt's ego and suggesting that Gale probably wasn't the real Heisenberg, Hank might have never decided to look into the case any deeper. But it was that spark that gets Hank out of his funk and back onto the case. The best part is that Hank has Walt drive him around to stake out all of Gus's locations, while Walt has to play along and try to convince Gus from afar that he's trying to calm Hank's suspicions down. And let's not forget about Skylar this season. Now, once again, I am not a Skylar hater, and the plan to con Bogdan out of his car wash was a ton of fun to watch. I loved that. It was a great idea, giving them the excuse that they need to launder all of Walt's cash. And the one thing I love in storytelling is how sometimes seemingly disconnected plot threads can link up perfectly. See, Ted, Skylar's former boss and the one that she had an affair with, he owes an insane amount of money to the IRS, and if they decide to audit him, Skylar knows that they may audit her as well since she did the bookkeeping for him. So she tries to give Ted money that he needs, taking it out of their fund, using Saul to fabricate a dead relative inheritance for Ted. But though Ted accepts the money, he refuses to pay what he owes right away. Skylar keeps trying to make it happen to the point of sending Huel and QB over to Ted's place to intimidate him, and Ted winds up, yeah. But it links up perfectly to when Gus decides to replace Walt with Jesse permanently, and threatens to kill Walt's family if he interferes with getting rid of Hank in order to prevent the ongoing investigation. Walt decides that he has no choice but to take the last resort and use all of his money to get his family out of town, get them new identities and a brand new life. But with half of his earnings gone to Ted, he can't. The ending of the episode Crawl Space has Walt falling into a full mental breakdown, unable to escape his fate, knowing that Gus plans to kill Hank, knowing Jesse is against him, and with no money coming in anymore, everything is about to be gone. The last 2 episodes of Season 4 is an insane back and forth of power plays between Walt and Gus. I love how we as the audience are kept guessing. The first time watching this, I had no idea how it was going to turn out. Did Walt poison the kid, or was it Gus? Or was it neither? Walt making this little old lady go into his house while he watches from afar to see if there was assassins in there trying to kill him, and there was. Ultimately, it culminates with Walt getting Jesse back on his side and even teaming up with Hector Salamanca in order to bring Gus down. By the way, I love the scene where they call Hank in to see Hector because he has some special message he'll only give Hank directly, and he just makes them spell out, "suck my dick." I laugh at that every time. But the ploy works. Walt gets Gus to visit Hector one last time so that he'll finish the job, and just as Gus is about to kill Hector, Hector finally looks him in the eye and uses Walt's bomb to blow them both the fuck up. And even though the final episode of this season will always be enjoyable, I wish I could watch it for the first time again. There is nothing like seeing Gus walk out of that room, wondering if this is going to keep going on, and then seeing that blown off piece of his face and thinking, holy shit, Walt actually did it. And that's the thing. This season is so good at making you root for Walt, and even seeing Gus's backstory and his struggle, neither him or Walt are really in the right. It was just a struggle for power, and for Walt,
I won.
Season 4 is many people's favorite, and it makes sense as to why. The episodes get more intense, there's more on the line than ever before, and it builds to a near-perfect finale. It also primes Walt up to be the devil incarnate that he becomes in Season 5, especially with the final shot of the season, zooming in on the Lily of the Valley, showing that everything between Walt and Jesse has been a manipulation, and that the darkest times are yet to come. Let me know what you guys think about Season 4 down below. What was your favorite episode? What was your favorite character moment? Favorite storyline? I'd really appreciate you doing that. Also, guys, thanks for watching this video. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Comment if you'd like to help it in the algorithm. And if you want to support the channel on that deeper level, I have a Patreon and channel memberships down in the description below. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.